Why are we always trying to find meaning somewhere else? Why are we always looking for hidden intentions? Is truth necessarily beneath the surface? Those are my questions today. I'm gonna talk about Ernest Hemingway's Iceberg Theory, and I'm gonna not question the theory, but I'm gonna question the way in which we can read the theory, because I think there's a trap there. In his famous Iceberg Theory, Ernest Hemingway proposed the image of the iceberg as a metaphor for the writer's creative process. As we in the iceberg can only see the tip of it, we can only see the tip of the iceberg, which is just a small percentage of the whole thing. The same thing should happen, Hemingway said, in the writing of a story. So you as a writer should imagine the whole universe of your characters and your story, your situations, their backstory, their inner motivation, and then only when knowing the whole thing, the whole iceberg beneath the water, you can, as a writer, hide most of it. So the reader has room to find out the truth or to feel the truth, and that's the difference I want to talk about. That's where the trap really lies. That's where the misunderstanding in the reading of Hemingway's theory really lies, in the difference between understanding what's beneath the surface and feeling what's beneath the surface. Let's see first what Hemingway actually wrote in 1932, almost 100 years ago. If a writer of prose knows enough about what he's writing about, he may omit things that he knows, and the reader, if the writer is writing truly enough, will have a feeling of those things as strongly as though the writer had stated them. The dignity of movement of an iceberg is due to only 1/8 of it being above water. A writer who omits things because he does not know them only makes hollow places in his writing. I'm not gonna get into this idea of when he says if the writer is writing truly enough. I don't know what he means by that, so I'm not gonna get into that because it can be tricky. But the thing is that he's arguing that if the writer didn't do the whole imagining process of the hidden information, so the story would feel hollow or shallow, as if without real volume, let's say. And I don't know if there's a way to prove that theory right or wrong. I mean, we as writers, directors, actors, we explore material during the creative process, and we leave a lot of things out of the final cut necessarily, and that's part of the process. What I'm not sure about is if the work itself actually needs all of that in order for us to feel it's alive. I mean, we can imagine a situation, a creative situation, a piece, a work of art in which the writers didn't think any of the backstory of the characters' inner motivations or the whole part of the iceberg underwater. And still the reader feels it's pretty alive. We don't know. The thing with the idea that the writer should know the whole iceberg for the reader or viewer to feel the aliveness in the tip of it, in the text, if we follow that idea, we can understand that the reader or the viewer should then discover the exact same thing that was hidden in the first place by the writer. And Hemingway is not saying that. He's saying that the reader can have a feeling. The reader will have a feeling of those things as strongly as though the writer had stated them. So Hemingway is not saying the reader will understand the facts, the hidden facts of the story, of the backstory of the character, or the inner motivations that are not explicitly stated on the text. He's saying the reader can have a feeling, just a feeling, not an understanding. But of course, we as humans are so brain-oriented, so idea-oriented, that I believe we tend to read that theory in quite a mental way. So instead of us seeing the tip of the iceberg and feeling the whole thing beneath water, we read the tip of the iceberg, what's stated on the text, and we are not satisfied with that, so we go down, we dig down to find the facts, the truth, as if there was only one truth. That's the problem. That's the problem with reading this theory too literally, that we can read just to find the truth, the same truth, meaning facts that were hidden by the writer in the creative process. We start thinking of the writer as if he was the Riddler in Batman, and we as readers start perceiving ourselves as this kind of Batman trying to figure out the puzzle. So we as writers, we also get caught in this trap. So our creative process becomes this screaming, the reader, riddle me this. We leave no room for the reader to create his own meanings. For now, the reader must get exactly what we hid or what we wanted to say, as if the art of fiction was a package in which we deliver a message to a reader whose only task is to get it.
You just don't get it, do you?
So it all turns into this getting it activity. If you are the writer, you have to first get it and then hide it, and if you are the reader, you have to discover, uncover, and get it. So it's all about getting it, as if there was only one truth. One of Hemingway's most famous short stories, this was my grandfather's book, it's very old, look how yellow the pages are. One of his most famous stories, almost 100 years old, I think it was published in 1927? Or something like that, The Killers, very short story. It's about these two killers who arrive at this diner and they are looking for a Swede. This guy, we don't know who he is, because they want to kill him. We are never told why they want to kill the Swede, but this Nick Adams, one of the characters in the bar, runs to the Swede's pension to alert him, hey, these two guys are looking for you, they want to kill you. And the Swede is lying on bed, staring at the wall, and he says, I don't remember what he says exactly, but he goes kind of something like, who cares, or there's nothing I can do. So we don't know why he's not trying to save his life either. We know nothing. Hemingway gives very little information in this. It's a short story that it feels as if he took his own iceberg theory like very seriously in this story, because he says nothing. I mean, it's almost 100 years old and one of Hemingway's most famous stories, so it's been analyzed a lot, quite a lot. And if you go online, you can find articles about the killers, about this short story, talking about what it means, saying what it means, concluding, getting to a conclusion. I mean, getting to a conclusion where the author gets exactly what the story is supposedly about. So I read an article talking about how The Killers is about violence in post-war American society, and so on. But when I read that article, it felt as if that was the truth in the story, as if me as a reader were not allowed to find another meaning. I mean, the author of the article was not saying that, but as you read, it could feel that way, because when we take too seriously the idea that a work of art has one truth and that our mission as viewers or readers is to find it cleverly, smartly, intelligently, find the final truth, so we get dogmatic and we're gonna argue with someone whose understanding is different. My question is, who says that a work of art means only what the author conceived of. Probably Hemingway had the same ideas. Probably Hemingway was thinking about violence in post-war American society. I don't know, but I don't care. I mean, I can play the game of caring what his intentions were, and I can go research, and probably I'll find information about what was Hemingway thinking about when he wrote The Killers. But that doesn't make that idea, his ideas, the actual and final truth about his work of art. Because if we assume that a work of art has only one meaning, we turn art into this communication process which kills, talking about The Killers, kills a lot of poetic possibilities. Poetic meaning the freedom to make sense of experience, human experience, in different ways. And if we take too literally the theory, the iceberg theory, we turn the author into the authority who has the final word. I mean, Hemingway's been dead for a long time now, and if he didn't say anything about his story, The Killers, we will never know what the final answer is. But if he was alive, we wouldn't either, because whatever he thinks about his work is not the final answer about his work. At least this is the way I see art. At least art. Otherwise, art turns into this hide and seek kind of game, and it's beautiful. It's the detective stories game. I love detective stories. I was a huge fan of detective stories when I was younger, a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes and all of those, and then the American thrillers like Chase and Hammett and all of those, and Philip Marlowe. I love that genre, but it's a genre and it's a specific game. If you turn all of fiction into this detective story structured kind of game, then the experience gets really limited and limiting, because you start pressuring the work to signify, to mean only one thing, as if truth was right there just beneath the water, as if our job as readers and viewers was just to dig and find it, as the treasure in an adventure story or the killer in a detective story, the final answer, the ultimate truth. Why is that? Why do we tend to see fiction and storytelling as a digging process to find a single truth? Well, because the single truth brings us together as symbols. The definition of a symbol is something that brings us together. Stories bring us together. Sharing one understanding about a certain situation brings us together. When we don't agree of what an experience means or meant, that tends to bring our difference out, and we have a hard time with difference. So it's a tribal survival mechanism. Understanding brings ease and satisfaction and even pride. Definition brings ease and stability. It makes us feel safe. So in a way, it's a survival technology disguised as profundity. Let me read a quote. John Cassavetes' Movies, The Adventure of Insecurity. This is a small book by film critic Ray Carney about John Cassavetes' movies. I'm going to talk about Cassavetes in another video, not now. I want to read this really short quote by Ray Carney. He says, "Our culture is devoted to a surface depth understanding of expression and experience. Surfaces are misleading, truth lies in the depth. That's why thrillers and mysteries are the great pop art film form. These films offer us the adventure of exhuming buried treasure, the shocks and surprises of encountering cleverly, cunningly revealed secrets, the excitement of digging down, down, down to an ultimate truth." And that's not what Hemingway was saying, at least not in this quote. I don't know what he meant exactly. He's not here. Ernest, see you later. The way in which we read the theory is what I'm talking about. And as I've seen in a lot of videos in YouTube or read things about the iceberg theory, I detected this tendency to read the theory in quite a literal way, in quite a mental way, understanding that Hemingway said that the reader should find the exact information that the writer hid. What Hemingway was saying was that the reader can get a feeling. He didn't say should find information. He said he can get a feeling. But we are obsessed with finding the truth, and we are obsessed about this idea that truth is always buried or somewhere else. Why not here? Why elsewhere? Why elsewhere? Life is Elsewhere. That was a Milan Kundera's novel that I read many years ago. I think I was in high school. Life is Elsewhere is about this young guy who dreams and dreams and keeps waking up from dreams after dreams inside dreams and can't quite get to wake up. He can't get to wake up, like actually waking up to reality. It is as if he couldn't get out of the dream state and he never gets to the truth of things, to reality. I think it's a great example, it's a great metaphor about this way of living and thinking of life so ingrained in our DNA, which consists in constantly looking for life, for reality, for truth, for fulfillment somewhere else, as if real life were always in a different place. Truth is always somewhere else. The tip of the iceberg is never enough. We want more. Why? Why are we trapped in this obsession about finding the subtext of everything, this notion that the meaning of our experience is beyond or beneath? Probably there's an anxiety factor there, because if we see life this way and if we see the art of fiction this way, we always have something to do. We know what to do. We as writers must know the past of our characters and their hidden intentions and motivations, then hide it and see if the reader finds out or not. And we as readers know that if we are reading a story, what we have to do is to read between lines and try and find the subtext, this obsession about the subtext. I don't know, maybe this is very personal. When I read The Killers, for example, I'm not obsessing about what is actually going on or what's the motivation for the killers to go kill the Swede, or why isn't the Swede doing anything to save his life. I'm not so interested in those questions. I just reread the story and that was not my obsession. Maybe because I know that I'm going to talk about this, so I'm interested in things on the sides of the story, as for example, why the story takes a few lines space to present this woman in the pension that makes it clear to Nick that she's not called this way, her name is something that is probably not so important, and I was struck by how the text gives room for that. Why? I don't know, I got interested in different things, but what I mean is I'm not so, as a reader and a viewer, I admit that I'm not so interested in the final whys, in the final truth. Maybe I read too many detective stories already and I found enough revelations and truth and killers, and I had enough with that, though I still like watching or reading detective stories from time to time. Thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think about these ideas. Let me know if you already knew about the iceberg theory, if you read Ernest Hemingway, if you read The Killers. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments and questions so I can go deeper in this exploration. These are not answers or final answers. I'm interested in conversation, not in concluding anything or in getting to the final truth. as I said, for this past 20 minutes or so. So thanks for listening and see you in the next one. There was something hidden. The whale.